Peace YouTube, this is Florbrune coming to you today, back in the States. So, check on, oh, I'm in the States now, so I should leave some clothes on. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. I hope you can actually see me during this live. Hopefully the transmission is a little clearer. So, check on in. I'll wait until a few people check in. Yes, I am back from Brazil. I just got back from Brazil. Was it last night or the night before? Peace, yes. I'm not home yet. Only a Sagittarius could fly all the way around the country, then come back and not even stay at their home. Actually, I'm here with my little one celebrating their birthday with their daddy. So we're enjoying ourselves. Check on in. Hey, Jarvis. Hey, Mina. I'm quite relaxed. You know, everyone's still sleeping. For those who celebrated the the tyrannical takeover of hey Lynn, the tyrannical takeover of the United Snakes of America by celebrating 4th of July. No, I hope most of you had a good time. Many people celebrate the bombs and the crackles and pops of war during 4th of July. Thank you, I appreciate that, Lynn. I'm still a little time lagged. I won't say jet lagged. You notice I said time lagged. I'm time lagged from jumping from one dimensional portal to another, going in between a few and jumping back and forward in time. So we're gonna get in this conversation. It's very relative. So, like I said, peace to the east, the west, north, and the south. I am back from Brazil, which was another time in another dimension, in another. So what I thought is relative, and that's why I waited to come back to the States to actually discuss this, is that, you know, one of the things I noticed even, hey Yaffy, one of the things I noticed that when traveling, and this is obviously not the first country I've been to, you know, I'm a traveler. So I've been to, you can't hear me? Is it buffering? Come on now, YouTube, it shouldn't be buffering. Can you hear me now? Hopefully, aw, thank you. She had a good birthday. Can everyone hear me? Okay, everyone can hear me. I'm gonna talk a little lower. Everyone in this where I'm staying is asleep. They'll be up when they hear my voice. We were out late. Oh, I've got a little scratch here. Yeah, you can hear me? Okay. Hey, Quantum Sensei. Hey, Aja. Hey, Josh. Okay, I get glitched anytime I mention time. Welcome. Hey, Esmeralda. Welcome. Welcome back to the Matrix. All right. So, hey, Kay. So, you know, as I traveled back through forward in time, this is, remember, my perception is my reality. Crazy. I'm back in the States and I'm glitching. I think it's me. You know, all the time, I think it's me. I don't really think it's the internet. I think my electromagnetic field has been shifted. I think because I've traveled in and out of dimensions and times, I think I'm glitching out the electronics. I don't think it's the YouTube family. I really think it's me. Okay, so let me talk quickly. So there will be a next video that is really piloted and it can trigger people. So I will warn you first on this video that when I discuss my travels to Brazil, which I had the most amazing, transformative, enlightening, incredible, but very mind-blowing time. It's going to trigger a lot of people and it will trigger you based on your complexion. So if you're very sensitive to conversations about quote unquote race or social economical differences, that's not the video you want to watch. It's going to hit your chords. It's going to hit you somewhere where you're going to feel a certain way. And that's if you're hypersensitive. If you're sitting in 0 point in a more balanced position and you can hear something that may be uncomfortable or fantastic based on your home court advantage, based on your complexion, then it's a video that you could probably get down with, okay? I give you that warning because it's going to cause a lot of disruptions in the peace of mind. Like I said, I had an incredible time, but it was a lot of things that need to be discussed. And you know, I like to blow spots. So I'm outside of the country, and because of that, I can discuss Brazil in a much more personable way without being arrested like Eligio Bishop was. So let's get in the conversation. Um, so I notice something every time I travel, and I started to kind of take in the fact that we are, and now before I even go into it, let me just state this. If any of you saw a show, it's a movie called In Time. Now this will give you an idea of what I'm talking about if it's hard for you to conceptualize or accept my own perception of the reality that I've been engaging with. There's a movie called In Time with Justin Timberlake. He is actually a person living in the hood, almost like the Savela, like the hood in Brazil. Like I liken it like that. He's living in like the hood. He's you know, he's poor. He's unable. Once they turn 26, they all get a time clock on their what is it, like a scanner on their body that counts down, and you have to earn your time. So you work to earn time. So like if you go and get coffee, it takes like a month off your time. Did anyone see that? If you haven't gotten a chance to see that movie, it's a phenomenal movie. You will never hear people talk about it because it's one of the movies that I know is talking to a particular thing that they are doing that most of the populace is unaware of. Okay, it's called In Time. It's a fantastic movie. If you've not seen it, maybe after this discussion, go back and look at the movie from a different lens and a different consciousness. The movie is really, really on point, and it's really talking about what I know they're doing now. So listen, in my travels to Brazil, I told you right away I had contact on the plane. And if you see in the little the little pin that I put previous to this video, I had a message from some group of ETs that I was in contact with. Remember, I talked about this previously, and I have to make a video totally dedicated to the type of ETs. I'll probably discuss that maybe on IG. There's an ET group there that I wasn't unfamiliar with and wasn't in contact with until I stepped on Brazilian soil, or previous to me even coming. They were aware of me and they made contact. That was one of the messages. So in my little pen, we're going to actually try to decipher the message. I haven't decoded it yet because I haven't gotten home. I'm still traveling. So they sent me a coded message the day before I was leaving, okay? It came from nowhere. The message doesn't have any sender. It just came on my phone. It's a coded on there and so on. So if anybody is a great decoder and you have an opinion about the pen, I actually posted it on my IG as well. We're gonna try to decode it over the next week or so. So once I landed in Brazil, I noticed as soon as I got into, right before I hit the actual coast of Brazil, something happened to the plane and to myself. You literally felt as if I was being pulled into a portal. Now, when it happened, because I did an overnight flight, which is the best way to fly there if you're coming from here, I woke up. It automatically put everybody on the plane to sleep. And I think I denoted on a previous video, my daughter actually saw a flash before, like when she was sleeping, she woke up and saw a flash, and then she went to sleep. It put everyone to sleep. So when I woke up with some sacred geometrical shapes on my arm, which I haven't shared yet with IG. I'll actually share that later. I didn't want to share it when I was in Brazil, okay? I noticed that there was a different in my physicality. I felt differently, literally like I was being pulled into a portal. Now, fast forward through that, the entire first 2 weeks, many of you know I was actually in Brazil for almost fully a month. Or was it a month? I think it was fully a month. I don't know time because time didn't exist in the way that it exists here. What I noticed is that when I arrived there, my body felt, and some people will say, oh, it's the flight. It wasn't a long enough flight. I've flown hours. I've flown halfway to Japan before. I mean, I've had longer flights than this. It wasn't the flight. I had literally felt as if I had been pulled in the past. Brazil was one of those places, and I've never experienced this before as a seasoned traveler. Brazil is one of those places where I felt that I was being pulled back in time. Literally, I can say that being there for the month, I felt like I had been pulled back into the 18th century with modern day technology that was there, but the people, the environment was highly archaic, highly. Even in being pulled in that time, in that dimensional time portal, I felt like I went back in time. I can say maybe not the 18th century, maybe the early 19th century, literally, where people were still involved pre-Civil War, like slavery still exists there, apartheid still exists there, in a way that only people know it's there, but for us coming from another time spectrum, it's very notable. And physically, your body feels as if you've been placed somewhere that is not normal for anyone from your frequency to be. Okay, so it took me about roughly 2 weeks to actually acclimate to the dimensional shift in time. I was pulled back in time. And, you know, big up to Kiki. I actually spoke to Kiki, and she felt the same way when she went to Southeast Asia. There are certain geographical locations on this planet that I personally think are not part of our timeline. I don't even think they're part of our time spectrum. I personally think that Brazil is one of them. I think that there are specific ET groups that go there, have colonized there, and especially the Germans who had intel from a specific group that they were working with, and they utilized the fact that they're more advanced in technology and they're forward in time to take advantage of the most resourceful, most beautiful, most amazing geographical location. Big up to all the Brazilians out there. Big up to all of you. I should say bom dia. My Portuguese has gotten so much better. When you live somewhere for a month and you try to survive, basically speaking another language, it was very odd for me to hear English. Actually, it was very difficult. It's interesting because I've been only used to hearing Portuguese every day. So when I got home, you know, and I'm not home yet, but when I got to the States, it was hard for me to hear English all around me. It's weird, it's comfortable at first, but it almost feels like you're in another world. Anyway, so let's go back to what I'm talking about. Oh, the history of China. Isolated for a long time. Yes, so I personally know, and listen to what I said. I'm gonna repeat it. I personally know that I was pulled by traveling to Brazil, especially where I was in Brazil. I was in northern Brazil, which is way different. And in northern Brazil, remember, northern Brazil is like our southern part of the States. In Brazil, I was inverted. So my body felt the inversion. In the north is where it's hotter, more tropical, and there's more people of color. In the south, there's more Nordics, and it's cooler. Like even when I flew to do my exchange in Brasilia, it was cold. I was like, ooh. And there's different groups of ETs that are interacting with the people there, okay? So I personally know now that when you travel to different geographical locations, you are truly traveling in time. Now, I think many of you noticed, if you watched the video with, big up to Assad, who did a fantastic interview with Martin. I forgot Martin's last name. Does anyone know Martin's last name? Anybody on here from Martin's last name? I did hear about the earthquake, and we're going to discuss that too. Anyone know Martin's last name? Martin Kelly. Thank you, Kay. Oh, Martin Kenny. Martin Kenny. Thank you, Preset. Thank you, Ms. Martin Kenny. If you ever listened to that video, it was a phenomenal. This gentleman is a phenomenal intelligence. Now, I didn't agree with every single thing he said, but his intel was the most on point that I've heard in a long time. He actually discussed the flat earth theory, which most people think that people who are flat earthers are bonkers. And I don't think that people think the theory of flat earth is bonkers. I think they think that some of the people who are flat earthers are bonkers. Big up to, you know, big up to Paola, who chilled with me for the entire month in Brazil. She calls those people bananas. You know, that's what she says. She says those people are bananas, people who are like off. Some flat earthers, because they're so adamant, they're very Nazi about their belief system. They can seem a little insidious in how they come at you. So a flat earther, I remember, many of you remember, there'll be times people come on my feed and say, well, we think you're okay, but we want to know if you believe the earth is flat. And then that makes them seem a little bonkers because it's almost like it's like a religion to some people, the flat earthers. So big up to all the flat earthers who personally think that the earth is flat. Now, you know that my concept, and I can bring up my personal belief, and I use the word belief appropriate in this. My personal belief is that the Earth is oblong. It's oblong. I don't believe it's round. I think it's oblong, and I believe it has to do with the Fahrenheit, what's the word for it? The plasmic. Hi, boo boo. You up and awake? Hold on. I've got my little one who just got up. Hey, I'm doing a live. Did you sleep well? You did? You want to go get ready? Your sister's still sleeping. I've got little ones that just came up. Anyway, so I personally think the planets oblong based on the I call it Fahrenheit, based on the grid that is keeping in. So that's why it's oblong. Okay, I personally think now, based on someone's perception, that's how they create their reality. Someone would say it's flat. Well, yes, of course, standing on the earth with your perception would be flat. If you keep walking, it's going to be flat based on the gravitational pull and that grid above us that keeps us all in placement. So yes, it depends on your reality. But I personally think that Martin's video, his interview, Osset's video was absolutely amazing. Is it buffering? Are you guys okay? Can you see me? Just making sure. Okay, I think everybody's fine. Okay, so when I traveled back in time to Brazil, listen to what I said. I traveled back in time. Now, again, we were going into the traveling to the 80s. I know the video was very botchy and spotchy, so I'll make sure I bring this up in the video to kind of expound upon the 80s, traveling back to the 80s, because this is very relative to this topic. And basically quantum physics, because if we talk about time travel, you always have to bring in quantum entanglement and quantum physics, that, you know, the microcosm represents the microcosm, okay? The the macrocosm represents the microcosm and vice versa, okay? And that's why you can experience, or at least conceptualize, time travel. Time travel isn't out of the spectrum of accepting, because it can exist based on the fact that we travel in time, even in our perception of our reality, okay? Because even thoughts, pushing thoughts out is a form of time travel. Bringing things in, or manifestation, if you accept that you can manifest things based on your perception. Is it working, babe? Good.
It's asking for where we're
from. Everyone, I think, again, I think it's just me. Personally, I think my feed, we won't know until I actually go home. I'm sorry about that. So, we talk about time as it relates. Now, I want to reference the movie In Time, again, with Justin Timberlake. Now, if you remember the movie, for some of you remember, I don't want to bring it up totally. If some of you remember the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake, he was living in a favela. Big up to our homies in the favelas in Brazil. Remember, Brazil is at the precipice of a civil war, okay? You could feel it. It's amazing. It's very magical, but there's so much disparaging socio-economical differences that it's only going to tip. It's too extreme. So if you watch the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake, I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen with Brazil. You can feel it. It's amazing. It's actually, like, I traveled back in time to see pre-America, before the revolution, before the evolution, before the tip of the scales. So that's basically what I experienced when I went back in time. But when we perceive certain places, like, I personally know that when we go to certain places, like maybe Brazil, more where there's more nativos or indigio, we're going back in time, okay? But when you go places like China or Japan, I personally think you're going forward in time. I actually think this is, and I say think, because I haven't really vetted that out yet. I personally think when you travel to places in Asia, I'm talking about not the islands, not the East Asian, the Southern Asian islands. I'm talking about like the actual big, large masses of China and Japan. I think you're going into the future. I think that is where the future is. That's why their technology supersedes anything that we can conceptualize. I think personally, those beings and those timelines, that's why, and I haven't traveled. That's one of the places I haven't traveled. So we're going to try to travel. I think we're going to try to do Japan, or I probably prefer we might do China. either do Bangkok or where was the other one? We're going to do one in Taiwan. Okay, so I don't know yet, and I can't vet it out. So I only have to get third-party information based on someone's travels there. But I personally, from seeing the technology there, perceiving the people, I personally think that they're highly advanced. Why? Is because many of the people, even, and this is a generalization, big up to all our Asian here. Even when we talk here in the States and we have interaction with Asians who are traveling back in time to engage with our archaic Americans, they are highly personality-wise in 0 point, very stoically what we consider to be detached. Now, that's a perception of what we is a judgment based on my interaction with many of the Asian factors. But I find there's a very indifference when interacting with many of our Asian faction from people who fly in from China or from Japan, and I say those like they're huge land masses. Those countries are huge. I mean, there's like 1 billion people or more on some of these land masses, okay? Whenever you interact with them, if you notice, they're very stoically removed. There's so many people, and I told you I don't believe all these people are real. I think the majority of people on this planet are actually holograms. I think they're holographic people. I personally don't think these people exist. When I was in Brazil, I told you that we engaged with an empty seater, someone who looked like a human, smelled like a human, even talked like a human, but was not real. He looped when I asked him a question with his cap. He wasn't able to answer, and he just looped back into the same conversation. This in itself actually solidified that there are beings here that many of us are interacting with that aren't human. They aren't real. They're holographs. They're just props in the matrix. And we think that there's so many billions of people on the earth. I personally don't think that's true. I think there's maybe, and I don't know, but I think there's only probably maybe 1 million or so real people. And when I say real people, I'm just saying people who actually are real vessels with actually with a soul encased in it. Everything else outside of that, I think they're either holographs or they're ETs or holographic grays, making you perceive them as humans, or just definitely just holograms, part of the programming. So the programming shows you people and they look real to you. I don't know if any of you watched, big up to our Trekkie fans. Anyone who watched Star Trek, if you remember going and seeing the holodeck on Star Trek, these are for our old Trekkies. Remember the holodeck on Star Trek? And Captain Kirk used to go upstairs and they used to go to the 20s, the roaring 20s, or they go and they set the scene. They'd be, do, 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 do. I want to go back to the 40s. Do, 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 do. I want to go back to the beginning of the 18th century. And then they would enter into the holodeck, which was like an open field, and all these beings would start to show up, and they would actually be interacting with beings, sitting down, having a drink at the bar, and the old wild, wild west. Do you many of you remember that? If you haven't got a chance, because it helps you to understand and understand what I'm talking about, because sometimes people think, oh, Flurboon, you're suffering from some sort of psychosis. or they think I'm on drugs. They think that I've been doing ayahuasca. No, you should hear some of the accusations they get. Oh, Flurboon, oh, we think that you're taking too many psychedelic drugs, and you've really lost it. No, I am sane. I am a mother. I am conscious. As you see, I traveled quite well and quite consciously and quite rationally with my family, and I engage in daily activities in the matrix with sanity in an insane world. Okay, just my perception of reality is a little different based on my frequency and what I've achieved as far as vibrationally and consciously. So of course, to the one who's outside of those perimeters, who's still limited or capped or suffering from Stockholm syndrome, I would seem like I'm mad or crazy. Anyway, so I personally think that the Asiatic factor is coming from the future. I think that's why some of the grays look like some of the Asians as well, with the way that their facial structure is and sometimes the eyes. I think we're dealing with people from the future if you're living in the United States. I think depending on where you are in Europe, you might be back in the past or you might be in the future. I personally know that traveling to Brazil had solidified that not only did I travel back in the past, that gave me an advantage. It gave me an advantage based on the fact that my consciousness superseded, listen family, my consciousness superseded majority of people that I engage with in Brazil. Now, let me give you an example. And I don't want to go too much in Brazil because I want to do a whole video on that. And I don't want to this is a teaser. So when I was engaging with people in Brazil, whether they were Nordics, when I say Nordics, just lunars or brown people, I noticed that they were very, very slow moving. Okay, very slow moving. Even in having conversations, remember in Portuguese, you can hello be like a whole 10-minute sentence. I'm serious. Like just the translation in Portuguese is longer than one word that we can mean in English, okay? Even when they're doing, because there was something that happened that was pretty tragic, and I'm gonna blow his spot. I was, and I don't wanna scare anyone, I'm fine now, but I was being set up to be robbed with my children in the house, okay? But because they're so slow, and I'm from New York, big up to my New York brethren. You know, this is one thing. They talk about us New Yorkers like we're heathens or we're savages. We're quite savvy. And the fact of the matter is, because I took the 2 train for so many years of my life, the 1, 2 train, 4 train, 5, 6, I took all the trains, the D train, because I did, because they're so slow. And it's not a disrespect. Remember, I told you I traveled back in time, so I'm coming from a spectrum of consciousness and intellect that supersedes. So I could foresee what they were intending to do because it was so easy, not just to read their mind, but because their thoughts were so just, it wasn't to the degree that what I had. Okay, so yeah, I was being set up to be robbed with my children in the house, but because big up to the Andromedans and this, the guides who did some things that let me know it was time to move on, and their plan was thwarted. See, this is when you about that life. See, this is what people don't understand. I told the gentleman I was about that life, but he didn't believe it. But what happens is that nature warned me. The house warned me. Everything gave me warnings. So as soon as they were going to do the setup, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to scare anybody. Flirting is fine. It's all good in the hood. But remember, I'm about that life. So I get preamps and warnings when people are about to do something. So they were about to gank me. I bounced before they could even do it. Okay? It's like that in Brazil. That's why it's very important when you travel, you are highly self-aware. Okay, that's why when I make the video, I'm going to give you the metaphysical and spiritual and physical way to travel to Brazil in the safest manner, okay? Because remember, the majority of people there, even when they appear to be wealthier, they still are limited in the way, remember, the euro and the American dollar trump the Rias and Brazil. So they perceive people, gringas, like myself, or anyone who comes from the States or Europe, of having a lot of extras. So that disparaging difference can cause resentment and also targets you to be violated. Okay, so if you know that before you go, you make sure you check yourself before you wreck yourself. And like I said, I'm about that life. I'm rocking with the Andromedans, and I got the whole host of guides with me. So whenever somebody's about to try to do something that's as long as I'm self-aware, remember, I'm highly self-aware, so I'll watch. You know, when the monkeys started to come, remember the monkeys weren't coming to my house. And on the day that they were trying to plan to do something to me, the monkeys came on top of the house. Anyway, that's a whole conversation. We'll discuss that when I talk about Brazil, okay? So I was just giving you I was just giving you an example of because we're highly advanced. If you're coming from a more advanced timeline and you travel back to a more limited timeline where people are not there yet in development and social development, economics is just frequency. So frequency development, it makes you have more advantages over them. And that's how the perception of time comes in, because I travel back in time to a place where they are preempt civil war. So like I said, this is likened to many people who are from, you know, let's say we got a chance to do a time jump and we decided to go before the war that happened in the South, or before the South started to rebel. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about. I get a chance to witness that in Brazil, and it's beautiful, but it's very, very, like I said, when I do the video on Brazil, it's really gonna hit some chords with many people. So I just give you that warning. Oh, Spider-Man. Oh, we're gonna go see the movie tonight. Anyway, so I basically jumped back in time. I engaged with people from a more advanced point of view. The ET group that is there, I believe it is some sort of ancestral ET group that is actually connected to the actual beings from Brazil. So I think that the beings, remember the goblin, and many of you get a chance. Big up to Brandy. Brandy Joyner put that in our group she put it in our, big up to the Cypher crew. She put it in Cypher. She actually put the video of the goblin looking white ET. Hey, mama. Grand Rising. You okay? You slept well? Yeah. The natives are up. And yeah, we're staying in a nice little place in Orlando. I'm in Orlando. I'm just not home. I haven't gone home yet. I'm still traveling. The little goblin-like being that Paola and I actually saw its foot going into the brush. This being, I think it's personally their ancestors. I think it's something because they know there are many people there that are okay with the ET faction that's there. It's not a hostile group. It's just a very different looking group. It looks very goblin-like. Almost like if you've ever seen The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings, what was his name? I forgot his name. What was it? The World of the Rings. Yes, you can't. That's gonna glitch out. Yeah, you're gonna show Daddy. What was his name? I forgot his name. I think Schmeagol. Schmeagol. Thank you. Schmeagol. Okay, it was Schmeagol. So actually, when Schmeagol was the one, that's what this being looks like. It looks like a very pale, has no color, very gelatinous skin. Smeagol. Golem, is that the name, Golem? It's Smeagol. It was Smeagol. It's not, like I said, it isn't a hostile being. It was watching us. Remember, we had the ship that was above us. It was watching us the entire time. You could sense it was around. Like I said, this is a group, an ET group that I haven't had contact with ever. I don't even think I had a conscious acknowledgement that they existed. That's why I say there are many different beings coexisting with us on this planet. And when you go to different geographical locations is when you'll meet, if you're part of that. If you're just aware, you'll notice that there are different groups that are interacting with a certain populace of people. Now, mind you, I can't speak about the entirety of Brazil because I was only in one part, which was the northern part of Brazil, which for us in the States would seem like our southernmost hemisphere. Okay, it's totally different. Okay, drink a little bit of water or juice, okay? And because of that, I can't say what other groups are interacting in Rio. Now, I'm supposed to be going to Rio for the northern part of Brazil in March. I think I'm going in March for their carnival. Big up to Rio. I will go safely and heightens in self-awareness, but I'm planning maybe to go to Carnival because, again, I'm one of those people that I don't want to judge from a spectrum of limitation. I always want to judge from a spectrum that I know that I can actually speak about. You know, I'm not fond of making unsound decisions based on limited interaction or experience. I'm just really big on that. That's why when I come to you, I'll tell you whether I know something, because when I know it, I know it. It's just my personality. So I'm grateful for that. But this being is interesting. And like I said, they acknowledge it. They're on bathroom doors. They would have the ETs, like man, woman, and ET, all accepted. They had statues of this being all over. The being was known to walk around the local locations, I think it had healthy interactions. Paula Anaz noticed that when we drove, because we didn't have paved roads. It's very interesting. Where I was in Brazil for most of the month, we didn't have paved roads. So most of the roads we were going, that's why I said I went back in time. Most of the roads we were on were like boom, 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 boom. It was like beautiful red soil. As you see, my skin is sun. I was out on the beach the day before, and I have this amazing suntan. It's from the beautiful golden sun. Well, we call it the Sun Simulator 546 because we don't know what simulating sun they have over there. Because I personally don't think that the suns we're seeing are real. I think we get simulators. I think wherever we are, and I can't even vet that out because the sun looked different on different days. So I think in certain parts, certain days, we would get another sun simulator because the sun looks so different. And remember, where I was staying, there weren't any chemtrails at all. Yeah, there weren't any chemtrails. So it wasn't like it was the chemtrails over the sun causing a different color, a different color that was different. No, it was just, you could just tell that it wasn't necessarily a real sun based on just how it felt. I remember, and I've lived on the planet at least long enough to remember when at least I think I experienced the real sun. Whatever is being shown right now isn't necessarily the sun, okay? The flat earth, like I said, my perception of the earth isn't flat, it's oblong, and it's only oblong. The surface that we walk on is flat. That's what I'm saying. It's all based on your perception of reality. When you call something flat, that actually has a Fahrenheit, and I call it a Fahrenheit, it's just the actual grid that keeps us in here, that we experience gravity, the gravitational pull. That is what's giving us the perception of what the shape of the planet is. I personally think it's oblong based on that shape above, but the land mass that you walk on is flat. Okay, I don't think that it's round like they show you with the globe. I think the globe has been so distorted. If you're looking at the globe, and if you get that for your children, I mean, some of us who come from the previous ages, the globe looked different, the land masses look different. Now remember, Asia used to be smaller than Africa. Africa is the biggest continent on this planet, and because of the a colonizer's mindset, because they don't want people to think that there's more people of color in the planet than there is, what they do is they make the landmass of Africa smaller and they make Asia seem bigger, and then they've even made Asia seem a little smaller, and now they make Europe look a lot bigger. So it's all based on a very unhealthy, systematic, covert, parasitic being, and they're not human. When we start getting into concepts of race and reality, I told you there isn't, and I agree with Martin, there isn't anything but the human race, but there are others here. So when we talk about race, you got to be very careful when you say that, because we have different species of beings here that look seemingly human but aren't. So then when you start bringing up complexion, that doesn't mean anything, because when you go to Brazil, you will see a lot of brown people who have no color. And I think Rudolph of Germany was the only person that I've ever heard say that. There are brown people who are devoid of color in Brazil. They're shaped like brown people. They have the same blood type. Remember, I'm about that life, so I ask everyone's blood type. They have the same blood type as brown people, but they're very fair because they're devoid of color based on, a lot of forced mixing, but they're brown people. So don't bring up, if I hear another person say, well, we're not the same race. No, if you can mate with someone and create a baby, you're of the same race. Now, if you're a different species, you're gonna need that shot. That shot some of you have to get when you're pregnant with some other species baby. Now that means you're a different species, and you probably shouldn't be mating with other species. That's just my personal, that's a form of the hybriding program that they've projected. That's why many of you mothers cannot get your children's blood types in the hospitals anymore, because you don't even know who you're actually having sex with, because you think with all the pheromonic, yeah. Oh yes, you can. Just make sure you drink a little water, okay? With the different holographic programming and the fake pheromones they put in colognes and deodorants and all that stuff, they tricking you. Some of you are sleeping with straight up reptiles, and you don't know until you give birth to them, and you'll be like, oh, my child has really bad eczema. No, you are having sex with a ravenous reptile, and you've given birth to his offspring. And they're beautiful. Listen, I love all little babies, but I'm just saying, don't be shocked when your children come out a different species based on the fact that you've been lied to, and they don't want you to know of the different beings coexisting here, okay? This is when, my sanity gets questioned all the time. They'd be like, she's crazy. She can't. If I'm crazy, tell me how many people get their blood types. Tell me how many mothers, because I'm about that life. I'm the best researcher in that because I ask people questions. Tell me how many mothers are getting the blood types of their children in hospitals now. Women have to fight to get their blood types in the hospitals. Ask the many of the mothers on here. Ask the mothers on here, all the babies, right? V babies. That's what I said. We'll pick up Oz. Ask all the mothers how many times they ask the doctors, can I get their blood? Ask how many people are having a hard time getting their own blood type taken. It does not take a lot to get a blood type test. It's less than 2 seconds. That's why when they test babies in the hospital back in the days, it only took 2 seconds. Why are doctors telling you that you can't get your blood type? Because they don't want you to know what you are. And they don't want you to actually find out or actually vet out who you should mate with. Because right now, with the anti-abortion law, and this is where I think Offset was on point. Big up to Offset. I gotta give her props again. She's the only person who said this when I said this. I said this before. The reason why they have the anti-abortion law is because they got beings coming on this planet and they want all the bodies. They need all of our wombs for these beings coming on, because we're going into a new we're going into a new paradigm, a new cycle. And we require actual children of a certain spectrum of light to be here in order to be, because there's not many that are here. So we need open portals. So I was trying. Anyway. Sometimes I disclose too much of my business. Anyway, so so when you tell people that, oh, that's not true, I have my blood type. No, you probably have your blood type because you were born in the 80s. Or the 70s, or the 60s. If you were born in the 90s or the 2000s, most likely you may not even know your blood type. I ask people who don't know their blood type. Everyone in Brazil knows their blood type. Listen to me, let me say this again. Everyone that I've encountered in Brazil, when I ask their blood type, they're proud of it and they all know their blood type. How come Americans don't know their blood type? The majority of people that I interacted with were A pluses in Brazil. A pluses seems to be the general consensus of the majority of blood type in Brazil. A positive, okay? We went into the beginning of the blood types, and A positive is, but that's why I know I've traveled in the past as well. Majority are A positives, okay? O's are very rare. They're actually worshipped as O's. So you'll hear people talk about their grandmothers who are O's, OGs. Big up to the OGs. I'm an OG. But many A's. And remember, A's have that indigenous quality. Remember, A's are the beginners, okay? So the beginning of the genomes. So it's beautiful to have met majority of people that I met. Now, mind you, I was only in northern Brazil. I was only in a small part of Brazil. So I'm talking about only what I came in contact with. But there was majority of people that I've met and I asked their blood type. They all knew their blood type and they were actually very proud of it. And if they had O's in their family, they brought it up with pride. So they realized that the O's meant something differently, okay? So I found that very interesting. Big up to all our A positives that I was meeting. Yeah, very, very interesting. Where was I going with this? Baby on the brain. Oh. And then, there's so many videos. Listen, I could make videos for days and hours. I actually freed my ancestors. Okay, so let's go into the time spectrum, the time traveling based on traveling to different countries. So this is what I suggest. Because we have a merging of timelines, I think it's going to be easier for people to travel. I also think this is why we're getting a migration from people from the southernmost hemisphere to the northern part. I think they're getting the urge. Remember, we had a lot of the Ecuadorians, all of them are migrating. If you notice, they're migrating north to the border of the states. I personally think it's because there was a portal that was open. Now, I changed my mind because before I thought something different. I actually think when a portal opened, allowing for better transference of energies, I personally think that there were certain people that felt it and felt a portal open and felt the need to migrate through it. Almost like, something opened and you're like, yo, let's get out of here. Like they were in a time portal and they were like, yo, we in the past, we could go in the future, but they're not aware of it. So they're not heightened until, maybe they are. I'm just assuming they aren't. And I shouldn't make that assumption. We should ask some of the South Americans that are migrating to the border. Maybe we should ask them, because maybe they do have a perception of why they're going to the north. I personally think that there was a portal opened, and it allows people to move from border to border a little easier. Now, if you watch the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake, you'll understand what I mean. Because every time he went through a different time zone, what did he have to do? He had to give up time. Listen to me, that movie is so on point. Every time he went to a different time zone, he had to give in order to travel, to the point where he was giving up months and years just to go to another time zone. It's a deep movie, and after this discussion, you'll understand that this is, like, I had to watch it again once I realized that I traveled in time. So when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, snap. They're telling you everything. So just to go to another time zone, you either have to give up time or you gain time. I actually reversed my aging based on going to South America because I went back in time. So it actually does a regression. It actually takes you back. And then when you go into the future, it'd be interesting to see if people travel to Asia, if they age. That's why in parts of China, you can't breathe. They have to put masks on. I think that your health and your age, actually, I think you might age a little bit if you go to Asia. Even though they may not be affected in a way, I think you traveling there might actually affect your age. So I won't know until I do it. This is just, I think personally people are traveling through portals, time portals. And I think they have maybe like an inner clock, like animals, to migrate when the portals open. You know, many people walk around without overt intel from the ancestors. And I told you now, I know it now. When I went to South America and I went to Brazil, I freed my grandmothers. They were living in an etheric realm where they thought it was real, which was looping right above them, and I freed them. Being there as a physical portal, as a physical representative of their lineage, what it did is I allowed, the keys were in my codons, and because of that, I could unlock them and free them with my acknowledgement that they existed. Now, if I traveled and didn't even know that my family was there, maybe not, but because of my acknowledgement and I had the keys in my codons, I released them. And in releasing them, all the memories, family, when I tell you I'm having memories of where they lived, the places that they live, some of them lived inside the caverns where there were open spots where they created homes. I have memories of it. They came once I released them. All these memories started to pop out of me because we're supposed to have our cellular memories from our ancestors. That's not supposed to be locked down. All these vaccinations, oh, and family, the vaccinations. While I'm traveling, we traveled to Brasilia, right? We traveled to Brasilia, you know, for my layover, because I had to stay overnight before I took my other flight out to the States the next morning, which is the capital. Big up to the capital in Brasilia. Met some really amazing guy there. He was so cool. He gave me some intel. But the people in Brasilia are different. That's another spectrum of people. When we went to Brasilia, what I noticed in the airport, we were sitting waiting for our suitcases, and all of a sudden during the announcements, oh, vaccinations needed and required. Oh, you need this vaccination. I've never, ever heard when I go to an airport an initial, and them initiating any discussion about vaccination. They were telling people what the symptoms would be. I was in shock. Like, I literally was sitting, because they said it in Portuguese, they said it in German, Spanish, French, and then they said it in English. And I was in shock. They made it a point to talk about vaccinations. And what I will say, and again, this will be more for the Brazilian video, which I'll make when I go home. All the women in Brazil that are pregnant are told they need a vaccination. So women are getting vaccinations when they're pregnant here in Brazil. I said here in Brazil. I'm in the States. They're in Brazil. So all of the women are required to get a shot of vaccination while pregnant. Okay? So that happens sometimes here, but the women most likely will decline. Every single woman will get it. Even when I discuss with some of the more, nativos, the women that are a little more, maybe just, remember, they're back in time. So I want to be very sensitive that it's not saying anyone's lesser, but they're limited in their cognitive skills, just based on the fact that they're from the past. Remember, they're preamps, what I consider to be like the beginning of the 19th century. That's kind of how they are, maybe even a little earlier. Anything that the government tells them to do, they will do. So if the government says that you need a vaccination when you're pregnant, the women will get vaccinations when they're pregnant. So when the babies are already capped consciously before they're even born. Okay, so when I talk about having access to my memories, my cellular memories, I came to a country where my ancestors were. Once I released them from the etheric prison that they were in, that I wasn't even acknowledged, I didn't even know existed, being on the landmass of your ancestors can possibly, it doesn't definitively mean you'll do it, but can possibly release them from imprisonment. We didn't know that they were at their prisons. At least I didn't. A lot of the shamans may know this. Maybe some of our voodoo and hoodoo people know this, but I wasn't aware. Me being on the landmass of my ancestors, I told you, as soon as I landed, I recognized the lands. I recognize it. I recognize the smell. I recognize the foods. I recognize the seasonings. I recognize the terrain. It's because by the very nature of me traveling where my ancestors started, remember, we're going back to 0 point. So I'm actually going back to my land masses, and I'm thinking that some of these South Americans weren't from South America. They were actually from North America, and they had the feeling to migrate back to their home spaces. Remember the Pueblo Indians and Navajos? All of them look like the Mexicans and the Peruvians. And people say, oh, why are we landing over the borders? There were no borders before colonization. Native Americans don't even have a concept of owning land. Okay, they don't even have a concept of ownership of land. And the only people who did were people that are parasitic, that are not even from their terrain. You know, owning land is insidious in mind state. It's almost like a sickness. You can't own landmass. You can live on it, you can cultivate it, you can actually appreciate it, but ownership of something that is a landmass is insane. That if you want to talk about insane people, talk about the colonizers who believe that owning land and creating borders so that cousins, it's the same in Germany. Remember when the Belgian Wall was up? Because people say, oh, why always talk about people of color and borders? No, I talk about the Lunars. Remember the Belgian Wall that was up, where you have auntie over the Belgian Wall and you had a cousin or grandmothers living on the other side of the wall, and they hadn't seen each other in like 20, 30 years because these beasts that aren't even human create these borders that you can't even pass. So you have to acknowledge, you have to be limited on where you can walk, where your ancestors walked. So I personally think a lot of these South Americans were from North America. I personally think that these people were actually from here. So all the cousins, all the people that were actually from Northern America, that with the Navajos, the Creek, the Wichita, that's more west, right? That's more west. Not the Wichita, the Creek, the Navajo, the Pueblo Indians. I personally think that they're family members of the Peruvians, all those, people living on the southernmost hemisphere. I think they just migrated at the last shift, and they're migrating back for the next shift. You know what I mean? It's like the shift. So that's just borders. Borders are parasitic. People who create borders out of it. The same people who violated people's peace of mind on land are the same people who create borders. You ever see that people could violate you? And let me give you an example, because people think it's crazy to say that. The same person that could cheat on you, right? If you believe in cheating, the same person who could cheat on you would be really, really hell-bent on making sure they're not cheated on. You ever notice that? So it's kind of like that. The same people who came and murdered, indoctrinated, religified people are the same people who will be upset if someone else violates, or their ancestors will be upset at the same violation. It's sick. That's why I say to you, all the karmic debt of your family members, you pay. That's why I tell many of you sea stars, do not mate with insidious beings who come from a naughty lineage. People think that's funny. I'm a big geneticist in that way. When you mate with males or females that have karmic debt in their lineage, your children accrue that debt. So if you're raping women, then your children accrue that debt. So it is very, very necessary for you to be mindful who you mate with. And I'm talking about all the lunars. Lunars, if you come from lineage where your ancestors were some of the people who did some of the dirt, you might want to acknowledge that and start to heal or forgive your ancestors before you start mating with other types of beings who did the same thing, because your children will accrue that date. Remember, we're going into, remember, all debts have to be wiped right now. So all debts have to be paid. It's like we're at the end of our cycle. So now we're all checking out of our hotels, and all those beers you drank in the fridge that cost like 20 times the cost, all those waters or chips, potato chips that you ate in the mini bar, that, or the liquor, they still have the little liquor things that y'all drank the entirety of your stay and you forgot about. All debts have to be paid, and I'm talking for everybody. I'm not talking about just lunars, but I'm talking about when we talk about land masses, we have to take into account for all those debts. Now, and there's, oh, I'm just reading some of the comments. I can see your comments. So, you know, because I think somebody got really angry at one of my old videos when I said all debts have to be paid. You pay karmic debt in your lineage. You know that, right? So you know that every time you reincarnate with debt on deck. I always call it debt on deck. So when you reincarnate, you can, if you reincarnate in a lineage where you have debt on debt, debt on deck, you have to pay that. Some people can exonerate that or wipe it clean by doing good deeds. That's why you see a lot of these wealthy people giving galas, giving millions of dollars to the homeless, or to they always have a what is it called, like a donation, what is it called, like a donation, what's it called, what is it called when you do like you have all the wealthier people who do all these, I don't know what it's called. I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about. Charities. Thank you so much. They cut me off when I started talking about charities. Big up to all you fraudulent wealthy people who think that you're but you're actually right, because what happens is that, and I don't want to demonize them, because what they're doing is they're exonerating their debt. So because they know that they come in from murderers or Shanghai shysters, they have to create charities. That's what that's about. That's energetic clearing. And it isn't wrong, it's actually right. They actually are smarter because they know the truth. So they create these fundraisings and these charities to exonerate some of the debts that their lineage has created. So it's not a naughty thing. I don't want to make it seem as bad, because it's very good. It's a very good way to exonerate some of your on-deck debt. Okay, so how they do it is a lot of times, no, Red Cross is a parasite. Red Cross takes money and it tells you that it's going to help people, and in the meantime, Red Cross is taking that money, and a lot of the executives of Red Cross, and this is my opinion, I don't know this Cross, that are the executives who are heading the Red Cross. I don't know what kind of aliens or ETs are running the Red Cross. They're living in big houses and they're taking all that money. Because if you see what happened in Haiti, if you see what happened in Puerto Rico, and you see the millions and trillions of dollars that were donated to these places, and none of the money went to building houses for children or houses for people, and there were billions of dollars passed through Red Cross, you already know that that's a parasitic organization. That's not a person. Philanthropists, I'm talking about people who are celebrities, or people who are very wealthy, people who come from old money. They're the ones who generally do charities, and that's a way of cleaning their slate. And there isn't anything wrong with that. I want to state that again, but that's why they're doing it. Okay, so for people who come from lineage, who've done crimes against humanity, who've killed and disforested, or have taken land and created borders, there is a debt to be paid. And the only people who suffer from the debt are those who are highly unaware that they have the debt, or in denial. And like I said, you'll see the denial people because they'll come on my page, on my older videos. These are old videos when I talked about debt needs to be paid at the end of your cycle. Everyone, like I liken it to, it's like the mini fridge that you have in your hotel room, and you drank all the liquor and you ate all the chips, and they're like 100 times more the price. And then when you go to checkout, you're like, oh my God, what are you talking about? I'm not paying the $100,000 for all this stuff in the mini fridge. I'm not paying $23 for a little bit of Smirnoff. Because they did it and they were unaware that they didn't want to pay the debt. So they just did it because they could and it was there. But then when it's time to pay the debt, they don't want to acknowledge it and they don't want to pay it. okay? I'm the best at creating scenarios to match what I want you to know, okay? Big up to my mom, because she was a teacher. That's why I'm able to give you wonderful examples that kind of equate to what I want you to understand or understand. So all debt has to be paid, even for us. Like, I did something naughty. I do naughty things sometimes. Not as much anymore because I'm a mommy, but when I do naughty things, because, I'm a salacious Creole, I appreciate things. When I do naughty things, I pay for it right away. My debts my debts have to be paid right away because I'm so self-aware and heightened in self-awareness. Whenever I do something naughty, I pay right away. It doesn't even wait. For those of you who haven't seen your karma yet and you've done something negative to people and you haven't seen it, it's because you've accrued a lot of debt, and that joint is gonna come when you are at least you least know it. And I always tell people, people who like to violate people's families or sleep with people's husbands or sleep with people's wives, or men who have an egregious appetite for women, who like to hurt women and impregnate women and leave them, there's debts that you accrue. And when you do that and you're not seeing the remnants of your debt, of the karma for it, it means that joint has accrued so much debt that you're gonna be like Nature Boy. And when you least expect it, like Nature Boy, it's gonna snatch you off your butt, and then you'll be in a Nicaragua jail, not able to eat any of your fruit in your B6 diet, and then you'll be under the same situation as Dr. Sebi was. Nature Boy said Dr. Sebi was deserving of what he got living in a jail and dying in jail. I'm not saying that I want Nature Boy to him, but what happens is when you say nasty things and you do nasty things, it may not come to you right away. You may be living your best life and you think you're getting away with everything, and then all of a sudden, when the rug is grabbed underneath your foot and you're in a Nicaragua jail, not having sex with 50 million wives or beating them up anymore, and then everything you said about the person before, now you're gonna be thinking, oh my gosh, can what happened to Dr. Sebi happen to you? You should watch what you say and watch what you do. Anyway, yeah, I agree, Maya. Yeah, just naughty things. Like I said, I get my debt. Like if I do something naughty, and again, I don't do a lot of it, but I'll do naughty things every once in a while. I always pay my debts right away, and I'm okay with it because I know what it comes. And that's a nice thing when you are so heightened in self-awareness and you do something that's off and you see it right away, because I can pin it. Like I can literally pin it. You know how you pin comments? I could pin when I did something naughty. Like I told someone something that wasn't, well, I kind of like, what I'll do is, because I don't like to lie, so what I'll do is I'll just withhold information, just not to hurt someone's feelings, or if I want to do something else. So I withheld information, and what happened is that I had it happen to me the next day, and I pinned it because I knew I did it. As soon as the karma came to me and I paid it, I was like, okay, I know why that happened, because I misled someone on not disclosing something that I should have said right away, and I should have said it, but I wanted to do something different, and I didn't want to hurt their feelings, and I had it happen the next day. So I knew when it happened, I knew why I got the karma, and I accepted it, and I was grateful for it, and I said, you know what, it wasn't worth me doing that, and I'll just be more mindful. That's it. And I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm at that point in my karmic evolution. So that's what I'm saying. Some of you, I see some of our sun stars who like to run through women like women run through panties, and y'all are gonna have a debt to pay for that. And it's not so much of enjoying being with multitude of women. It's not that. It's the lies, it's a deception, it's of making someone think that you feel more about them than you do. It's that misleading them that's why you accrue the debt. It's not so much the act, because in certain cultures it's okay. Remember, I don't really think of monogamy in that way. I'm a little more seasoned. I think we're supposed to engage with people as we feel. I don't think we're supposed to be hoarding people for long periods of time. I don't believe in that. I believe when I meet someone and I really like them, and imagine I think this way and I have limited lovers. I was married for such a long time. I don't really have what you call like experience in that way, but I know that it's only healthy. Like when you meet someone and you feel a need to connect with them physically or spiritually, I think it's healthy for you to do that. I really do. I think the hoardery of people came with Christianity or these religions that made people feel like they were going to have to stay with someone for the end of time, which isn't natural, especially in our timeline. It isn't natural to be with people past expiration dates. That's why a lot of people who stay in very unloving relationships get sick. They get all kinds of physical manifestations of ailments because you're with someone. It's like eating meat past its expiration date. You're going to get sick. You get poisoned. That's just my personal take on it. You know, you already know how I feel on this. You know, I think I think unless you're with your twin, and I think that's your perfected half. And when I say perfected, I just mean it's your half, or you're with a karmic mate where you guys have written that for the rest of your lives, which I don't think is happening as much. I think you should mate as needed. Some of you will hate me for that comment. I don't really do it though, because I don't find people who match me. Yeah. I think you mate as needed. I think if there's a wonderful person that you meet, I think a lot of our sea stars suffer from being in hell-bent relationships too long. I think our sea stars suffer more than men. Men get this. Men get this. When they meet someone that causes them to have some sort of like, you know, harmonic, reaction, they act on it. Women can have it and they ignore it based on the fact that they're suffering from Stockholm syndrome under the patriarchy that makes you think that you have to stay with your partner until he croaks. And then by the time he croaks, you're going to be older and unable to really mate properly. So that's my opinion. Call me a Creole. It is what it is. I just think, a lot of sea stars are put in that box purposefully so that you're not able to live your best life. Because if you've seen women that are very free-spirited and they're living very well and they're happy, you'll always notice that they're not tied and hell-bent on staying in relationships past their expiration point. They know their worth. They don't stay with men. They don't get with men that are 30 years older than them so that they're like with an old fart. Excuse me, let me stop. That's a judgment. Yeah, you get with these women that got old men for partners. That's also, that's unhealthy. That shows that she has a lack of self-love and lack of self-awareness. She's looking for something outside of herself that makes her feel more confident, but what she realizes when he dies, because he will die earlier than her, she's going to be an older woman and can't get a man her age because she's already violated that balance. So, I tell our sea stars, be mindful. Our sun stars get it. Men are a little healthier in that way because they're living under their home court advantage and patriarchy. But women, you've been indoctrinated, and you stay with a lot of people that aren't loving beings because you feel like you need a partnership. But there's so many beautiful men out here that there isn't a necessity to. I'm 47 when hubby 46. That's no big deal. 47 or 56 is not a big deal. That's within a time frame. I'm saying 10 years. We're talking about men that are like 30 years older than women. That's sick. And 20-something years older. That's when the men are parasiting off of the women's youth, and then the women are also not healthy. That's all. So, we have to be with people that are in balance with us harmonically, and spirit, mentally, physically, and in your same century, okay? I've seen it a lot in South America, so that's why I speak on it a little bit more. You see this disparaging difference of ages between people, and you see how sick it is because the men get with these women because they're young, and also their house, they'll clean their house, they'll do everything. So it's a bit of a slavery-based relationship. What if your family wants you to be married because he just proposed recently? Listen, whatever your families can't choose for you, because at the end of the day, you come into this avatar on your own, and at the end of the day, you're going to leave this avatar on your own. Your own happiness, as long as it's not hurting other people, is priority. If you aren't ready to be married and the person that you're with is not someone that elevates you or is balanced with you, this isn't something that you should choose. You should always choose based on balance. That works? How's it doing? Ah, okay, cool. Hold on, guys. Let me do this for my little one. Let me see. Hold on. I think it's.
His dad doesn't know.
Okay. Wait. I think I may have changed this. Hold on. Let's see if this one works. If it doesn't, it's another one. Hold on. I might have changed this. Oh, wait. Okay, have Daddy do the rest. Okay, sorry. What was I saying? Yeah, I just think we need to be more balanced. And this goes into, I'm appreciative I'm back safely and sound. I had an amazing experience. And like I said, I'm, it isn't a judgment, but what I notice is that we're all dealing with time right now because remember, time is collapsing. So all debts are to be paid. So I'm trying to stay out of judgment and trying to stay balanced myself. And I'm noticing it becomes easier when I'm not restricted by old system of beliefs, old belief systems which are gone. Family, oh, that's what Kay was asking, if family wants something. Families can be also your handlers. You got to be careful with that too, because some people are born into families. You need a code. I have a code on my phone. You need it? Hold on, family. I have a code. It's, yeah, here. Okay. Okay. Here you go, babe. Okay. Am I back on? Okay. Sorry, everyone. My little one's phone needed stuff. So anyway, I'm not going to hold this conversation long because I want to actually discuss this. We're actually going to discuss time as it relates to the collapsing of timelines. Also, we're going to discuss how it will affect you personally. I think if you're getting the draw to travel, it is you trying to resolve or to get a timestamp. So just like we go to our passports and we get passports, we get a stamp on our passport, you get timestamps. So if you're getting a need to go, like I have a friend who's dying to go to, once wants to go to Australia. She's been wanting that for years. And I was like, why don't you just go? She could afford it. I said, just go, it's safe. Australia is very safe. Another one wants to go to Egypt. Egypt, and another one wants to go to Tanzania. My lunar girlfriend wants to go to Tanzania. She's been waiting for this. I encourage you to get your timestamps. It's calling you. And as long as you have the resources, and when you go look for it, it's okay, meaning that you're not getting resistance. Any resistance is telling you shouldn't go somewhere. So if you're getting resistance, like you can't get your passports there, or you can't get a visa, or you don't have the money to go there, that's a sign that you shouldn't be there. Sorry. Okay, sorry, they're doing stuff in there. So if you're getting resistance like that, that isn't meant for you to go. But when you decide to go, you start looking for prices like, oh, I can afford this. Oh, my auntie just gave me money. Some of you young people get money from you, like your family members. Oh, auntie just sent me money for a plane ticket. Oh, someone's working for the airlines and they actually have an extra buddy pass. If you start getting openings like that, take it. It's your timestamp. You're requiring timestamps. I personally think that we're being required to go get timestamps. I just got a timestamp. It's amazing. And remember, I've been talking about it for years. And then when it was time, it was easy. And grateful to Paola. Remember, I had a homie. Listen, when is it that you can travel to a country that's considered to be hostile? And because Brazil was one of the countries that was considered to be hostile as far as just unsafe. But when was it that I would have someone who's just like myself, who can travel freely and effortlessly, who doesn't have, quote unquote, a matrix, a matrix, like a matrix job, okay? So she could travel. She was with me for the entire month. So that's when I knew it was time for me to go there. Now, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know I was gonna have the ancestral release. I didn't know I was gonna get all this online, but it was easy and effortlessly for me to get there. I had the resources to go there. I could stay there a month safely with my niestas. Even when something was coming up that was going to challenge our safety, the ancestors protected me. I'm getting intel I'm getting where they were living. Like family, when I say to you, I know exactly where my grandmothers were living. This is, remember, my grandmother now that's living is 102. These were grandmothers that preceded my grandmother now. So we're talking about grandmothers from 200-300 years ago that lived in the region of South America, which we call Brazil now. Brazil is only 500 years old. These are my family members. I see where they lived. I actually have the actual location. Remember, I was getting geographical locations in my first eye right when I was landing for my last destination. It all happens because I got a timestamp and I had to go get it. Now, are there other timestamps? I don't know. But if I decidingly make a decision, like I said, I will be living in Brazil. I decided to live in Brazil. Big up to big up to everyone, you know. So we will be living part-time and maybe even full-time in Brazil. So I've made the decision. That's why I'm saying when I make my video about Brazil and traveling there, you will see why. And some people are like, well, I don't know if I need to go to Brazil. It may not be your journey, it's mine. And we need to stop putting ourselves in boxes. I may have to go to Brazil, go somewhere else. Like I said, I had girlfriends who needed to go to Ireland and Dublin. Others want to go to Scotland. Others want to go to Egypt. Those are weird places that their ancestry or something's calling for them. So everybody's different. So even in watching my journey, watch it, but don't be so hell-bent on my journey that you want to box yourself in it, because your experience in Brazil may not be the same based on the fact that that's not where you really wanted to go. You just appreciated me sharing my journey. And your journey, I can appreciate you going to Scotland. Scotland's beautiful though, it's another place. Going to Scotland and enjoying the places and love. There was another person, some gringas, some other Americans, one American and one Brazilian that I met on the plane coming back. He's a gringa. They call us gringas to be foreigners. So he said he's been dying. He doesn't know why. And I knew why. You know, I know consciously why he wants to go. But I didn't want to bring, you know, sometimes you want to mess with people's consciousness because I knew he wasn't where we're at. So he said he's been dreaming about Alaska from a little child. He's looking for a timestamp. We're having a collapsing of timelines. And I think that's part of the process.